Hello, this is Tempo Afric's program, Beyond the Headlines, and I'm your host, Petro Saile. Today, our guest is Tam Gita. Uh, Tam Gita is a well known personality in the Twin Cities, and I've known him for over 20 years. But just to give you a little bit about his background, Tam Gita is a president of and publisher of Mishale, the African community newspaper. The paper, in existence since 1996, is based in Minneapolis and serves the Midwest of the United States, Midwest area, reporting primarily on the activities of the African immigrant community. Tam founded the paper while still in college. The paper is considered an authority on the African immigrant community in the Midwest and held in high esteem around the United States within the ethnic media publishing industry. Mishale was featured in a year-long One Nation with News for All, a joint Smithsonian Museum exhibit in the the Smithsonian Museum exhibit at the museum in Washington D.C. that tells the dramatic story of how immigrants and minorities have used the power of the press to fight for their rights and shape the American experience. It runs through January 4, 2015. Now, for a lot more details, we'll go back to Tom. And if you don't mind telling us a little about the history of Mishale, although I remember a little bit, but people want to hear it from you.
From me, yeah?
Yes.
No problem. Thanks, highly. Petros, thanks for having me on the show. I love the show. I've been watching since it started, so I'm pretty excited. And I look forward to continued success of the show.
Thank you.
And more people are watching, so we love, I love institutions, so this is another upcoming institution that we look forward to supporting. But as you said in the intro, the Mshale's genesis really started back in '96 while I was still just about to finish college. And the way it started was, if you remember, really, just to backtrack a little bit, in the early 90s, the way people go online now and, the access, whether it's the papers in Nigeria, Kenya, Ethiopia, South Africa, I mean, you can access most of the major African daily newspapers now and news sources online now. Mm-hmm. But in the early 90s, that was really not the case.
Yes.
Actually, zero of the African news outlets had any web presence. Most of their web presence started in the late 90s and the early 2000s. So actually, in fact, most started in the early 2000s. So the way we used to get news at the time, at least for me, was either the BBC or and then also if there was the New York Times around, usually they'll cover a little bit of Africa here and there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then also those were the heydays of CNN. But we used to say that it's probably a good thing if your country is not featured on CNN, because usually it meant something bad or horrible
crisis, yes.
Just happened. I mean, once in a while they might cover a positive story, but overwhelmingly it was something negative. So there used to be an online community, or still is, but at the time it was more critical. There used to be an online community of scholars that used to subscribe to something where they had contracted a person in East Africa, in Nairobi, to summarize weekly. Actually, it started weekly and then became daily news in the East African region that covered Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda and Burundi as well.
Okay.
So they'll send a digest of, hey, this happened, or what it was a trained journalist.
Okay.
So there were things they will sense that, might be of interest to people who are over here. So you had to be a member of this online community because it was mostly a scholarly group. So it was mostly, people professors, research assistants, those kinds of people. And you have to be by invitation to be on that list.
Yeah.
So I had somebody who recommended me to join the list. So I joined, and
Okay.
I started becoming more aware of the kind of, how like your show says, beyond the headlines.
Yes.
And I started knowing, what was, going on really deep
The world.
inside,
Okay.
behind the news, rather than what was the headline on BBC or CNN.
Okay.
And then so I started sharing that just on a personal basis, like when I'll be at a party or something and say, hey, man, did you hear about XYZ? And then some people will be looking at me like, oh, okay.
What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
what are you talking about? So that's kind of how the business opportunity presented itself.
Okay.
And figured, maybe I can be putting together a couple pages for these guys and a summary. So I went back to the person who was providing news to the source, to the news, to the list, to that membership group I was belonging to, and asked him if he can do a digest tailored for me. So I'm not, just picking up what they had on the
Oh,
on
okay,
the thing.
okay.
So because that was, I mean, I don't think there were there probably were copyright issues. So I didn't want to get into it. So I thought, hey, can you tailor something for me? I can give you X dollars, and he said, "Oh, no problem. I can just tweak it a little bit and send it to you as well." So he sent me, and then we started weekly putting a two-page,
Okay.
8 by 11 size news summary of what was going on in those 5 countries in
East African. Okay.
So we did that for a couple of years, doing a weekly thing. After a few months, and then we started with like 5 subscribers, obviously.
I remember.
And then later on, we grew the subscribers,
Yeah.
to 10, 15, 20. Within the first year, I think we had like 50 something subscribers. And by the second year, we were actually over 200.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it was weekly. It was a lot of
Yeah.
work.
It was not.
Because computer wasn't very fast.
Yes.
Used to have like a 280, I don't know what they used to call them. Some really old computer where I used to put it together and take it to what was then Kinko's, which is now FedEx. FedEx Kinko's.
Yeah, it used to be called King.
We used to be called Kinko's at the time. So that was the genesis of Mshale.
Mshale,
Yeah, of
okay.
course, we can talk about how it evolved into what it is now, too,
Yeah.
if you're interested.
Well, I do remember those days. I do remember those 2 pages.
Yes.
For back and forth.
Yeah.
But I remember. And now it's totally a different story. You have, after 20 years, full-fledged newspaper.
Yes.
I don't know if the cameraman can see it. This is Mshale. If I had that 2-page, I would have shown it too. But a monthly paper,
Yeah,
right?
that is monthly. Yeah, yes.
And you just mentioned it that you also have online.
Yes,
That people can
yes.
follow, Mshale.
Yeah.
In fact, to add up to what you were saying, as a reader of Mshale, this is probably the only newspaper that lasted 20 years with no interruption. I've seen few newspapers come and go, seasonal, a year, sometimes very
It's a tough business.
short-lived. We'll talk a little more about that. But you're not only confined to a newspaper, but you also did a TV show.
Yeah.
You hosted a Talking Drum
Yeah.
show
Talking drum.
at ABN America, which is also national, if not global.
Yeah.
And you also interviewed very highly profiled people, such as the ambassadors, and interviewed Nobel laureates, such as Matai.
Yeah. Wangari Maathai.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the Gambian president and other ambassadors. You want to say a little bit about that experience?
Because as our profile picked up in the 2000s, early 2000s, they came into existence what is called the African Broadcasting Network.
Okay.
Which was an initiative, business venture by a group of Africans up here in Minnesota. Dr. Christine Akale, and his partners, Christian Akale and Mike Kessian, and others, I think Lamine Diba from the Gambia. Was in that partnership as well. And a group of them, about 6 or 10 people.
Okay.
So it was quite a venture, quite unparalleled at the time. Actually, I think there was only just one other venture of that nature. So they started African Broadcasting Network. It started off being hosted on Comcast.
Okay.
I think what was Comcast called at the time, but
I know it had a different name.
but Time Warner,
Time Warner, yeah. Okay.
Before then, it was Time Warner in this market. So they started locally on cable, but just within a few months, it was actually and which confined it to just Minnesota initially. But after a few months, within a space of a year, I believe, it was on Dish Network, which made it available nationally.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the I was not on the business side of it. I was more on the programming side.
The hosting part.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they as they were trying to determine, you know, the programming, they needed to launch a current affairs show. And you know, they scouted around, and since I was around, you know, they approached me and say, hey, you know, since you run Mshale, you know, we think you'll be a good fit to host the current affairs show. I did have some other video background because I used to be the producer for my church's TV show on cable. So it was not a completely unnatural fit. It was quite a good fit, actually. Okay. So I started hosting that. And the main focus of the show is, of course, current affairs, what is going on with locally here where we are, but then also things that are of interest nationally, whether it's immigration or other social issues that the African immigrant community is facing, was the main focus. And then occasionally we'll also venture into other things that are happening back in Africa. Okay. But the main focus was really what was happening within the borders of the United States as far as the African immigrant community was concerned. Okay. So I hosted that, you know, and then of course the Nobel Peace Prize winner at the time, first African woman actually to win, Wangari Maathai, just happened to be visiting the Twin Cities. Yes. So I invited her. She was very gracious. You can know when they come here, we were not included in that itinerary, but you know, we were able to at least get some time with her, and she came in and sat with us, and we actually did the interview at the then Holiday Inn by the U of M campus there. Okay. Yeah. So we went there and did it. And it was a big snowstorm then, I believe, when she was here. I remember the day very well.
I remember the picture on Mshale, one of your articles.
Yeah. So we interviewed her. She was a very gracious lady. It was one of the best interviews I think we ever did. And then the other one was, you know, we traveled to the Gambia, the Republic of Gambia. A crew of us, myself, Lamin, Dr. Akale as well, came on that trip. So we met with the president at State House. Did have an extensive interview with him. The reason we went there was because I believe they were about to host the African Union, major African Union heads of summit, heads of state summit in their capital, and Banjul, and we went there, you know, interviewed because the president had expressed an interest in how they can involve the diaspora. You know, we felt, hey, you know, we're a natural for that, you know. So we went, interviewed him, told us about the summit, what he had, plans he had for his country. And that was good, you know. So I got to do those things as well. You know.
That's a big achievement, you know, not only on the newspaper, but also on television broadcasting. You've done so many things. Another the other profession you have is you were a marketing analyst at the Best Buy.
Actually, that was I always tell people, you know, Mshale will be 20 years. Our 20th anniversary is next year. So, but the first 10 years, I didn't do it full time. Because there was no money. You know, I had a family. I had to take care of the family and children. So, you know, you have to. If you're a married person, you have responsibilities.
The priority.
If you have a family, you have responsibilities. So the first, you know, because really what I went to school, I always have to tell people this. You know, what I actually majored in school was marketing. business/marketing. And when I graduated, I started working with Best Buy.
Okay.
I was a buyer. Started different jobs there, but ended up as being a buyer. And the buyers, for those who don't know, I mean, like if you get that Sunday insert that you get, there's
from
that
the
Sunday thing
newspaper,
when you get from the insert, you'll always see an advertisement, and you'll see all sorts of things, TVs, computers, and whatever. So the buyers really are the ones who decide what is going in there. What they want to sell to the public, and also we get to decide what is going to go on the particular shelf.
Okay.
So my category was everything related to a computer except the computer itself. So anything you need for your computer, accessories, cables, and whatever, I was the buyer for that. And deciding which vendor, for example, we're going to showcase on the shelf and that kind of stuff. Very few, by the way, very few black people are given buyer responsibilities in these major corporations, which is, I think, is sad, but hopefully that will change at some point.
Very true.
But that was really my day job, as we call it here. That was my main day job, and then I was doing Mshale on the side. But then also as my corporate career advanced. And we have what we call career. I forget what they call now. Career
advancement,
chatting or whatever. There is a way they chat you, can tell you now you need to go this way. When I came to that point where they was trying to say, I think we need to give you more responsibilities. Maybe go do this. And here Mshale was also kind of growing at a nice. What I felt was a nice clip. It became a question of. Can't serve two masters. As Mshale was growing, I'd reached a point where I had to decide whether I need to put more effort into it and take it to the next level, or stay at corporate and just stay the way it was 10 years ago. And it was a case of, from my own assessment, if I stayed at corporate, there was no way Mshale was going to go forward. It was going to be stagnant, and I had no desire to see it stagnant. It was might as well just shut it down and move on. So I decided to leave the corporate life and dedicate full time to Mshale. So that was back in 2005. About 2005, early 2006, late 2005, early. So I left corporate. So actually, this year in the summer, it's going to be 10 years. I've been just doing full-time Mshale. And of course, the other things you just mentioned on the side, because I'll also help with other things in the community. Yes.
I'm glad you picked up the second master, so to speak. So, because your contribution is great in the community. So I'm sure Best Buy would have paid a lot more.
I'm sure, definitely.
But your choice to serve the African community is really appreciated by Africans. It is visible. Everybody knows it. Thank you. Again, many activities that you were engaged. One of them is the Minnesota International Center, the largest World Affairs Council in the United States. What is that? And what do they do?
And a lot of our guys, a lot of our community actually don't know what Minnesota International Center does. Some do, some don't. But MIC, we call it MIC in short. So Minnesota International Center, really, what it does, it's an organization that is quite a mainstay here. But it promotes international understanding and pursuit of global affairs discussions, actually, is what they are known for. So really, they just want to bring the world to Minnesota, in short. And one of the other programs they run also, actually, the way I used to tell people what MIC does is I tell them, hey, if you see any high-profile international visitor coming to Minnesota, short of a head of state, but let's say any foreign dignitary, ambassadors, chances are very high that MIC has something to do with that, or has a role to play in that. But one of the big things they do that people might relate, there is something called World Quest.
Okay.
World Quest is people who have gone to high schools here. They are familiar with World Quest. It's basically a geographical quiz. It's like a Family Feud for geography. You know,
Okay.
kind of knowing where the world is and stuff. And it's normally a very big deal in high schools. They love that stuff. So World Quest is how people know it. The other thing people might be familiar, they might be familiar with a program called Great Decisions. Great Decisions is something that is run by a group called the Foreign Policy Association out of Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
where normally they pick 6 topics, 5 to 6 topics annually, and neighborhood organizations and people around the United States get together as a group to discuss particular global affairs that are going on.
Okay.
But you know, for these things to run, as you know, Petros, normally there has to be some organization behind it. So that is what MIC is there for, is to see how to coordinate a lot of these things, arrange these discussions. And right now, actually, this year we're lucky. One of the 6 topics that the Foreign Policy Association has picked is U.S. Africa policy.
Okay.
U.S. policy towards Africa.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm one of the speakers for that. But I used to be on the board of MIC until 2 years ago. Just helping shape the board, the direction of MIC and see whatever little way we can influence it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not the board.
I'm not on the board right
Okay.
now, but I just still
active?
collaborate. Yeah, I still collaborate with them. I always joke, I always whenever I serve on a board, I leave. You never really leave because they'll still look for you.
They'll find you a
spot.
spot.
They'll find something for you to do.
Speaking of board, you're also you were a board president for Books for Africa.
Yes.
In fact, I met you there at one time when you celebrate the 25th.
25th
was it
anniversary.
25th? Yeah,
that was the 25th anniversary 2 years ago, yes.
And what's your connection with that organization?
Yeah, Books for Africa, that one is, I've served the longest. Actually, I've served in a variety of boards around the country, but the Books for Africa is very dear to me. That one, I still have a very intimate connection with them. I served as an ordinary board member, eventually moved on to be the secretary, and then I also became the board president. Which was I think I was probably the first African actually to be the board president.
I agree.
Yeah, I was the first person to be the board president, and after that, we worked very hard to ensure that we have a good representation of African people on the board, and also just involved in the fundraising and many other things that Books for Africa needs to. It's the largest ship of donated school textbooks to the continent in the world, by the way. Yes. So served there, good organization, trying to end what it's called the book famine in Africa. So, we worked together on a number of things. I still worked with them. I still work with them even after I've finished my term on the board officially. But they made me director of diaspora affairs.
Diaspora affairs.
Yeah, so because you can't just let Tom go, I guess.
Oh, no. Well, give it.
I like to be involved with them anyway because they do a lot of good stuff, by the way.
Yeah, I would not let you go, given the experience that you have and all the connection, the newspaper, and the other ones. Yes, I remember Books for Africa way back.
Yeah.
We even sent some books to Eritrea.
Eritrea, yes.
91, 93.
Yeah,
they
still do.
They still do?
We still do because normally what happens is people come and they sponsor containers. So like you guys sponsored a container one time.
Yes, we did, yeah.
Yeah, 40-foot container. And a 40-foot container has 22,000 textbooks in there.
Yeah.
So over the years, there's a minimum of 1 or 2 containers going to Eritrea every year, which is good. So we want to continue that. And
in fact, the good thing about it is they make you choose or select the kind of books.
Oh yeah.
That's how
that
it is,
still the case. That's still the case. You can choose. Hey, I want primary books. I want science. I want math. I don't want any history books because people might have questions about the history contained in those books.
Okay.
So the whole philosophy with Books for Africa is they only want to send books where the books are been asked for.
Very true.
You know,
Makes sense.
books.
Yeah.
The good thing with Books for Africa, unlike many NGOs, you know, it's
Yes.
us who go and say, hey,
Yeah.
we need 1, 2, 3. Do you have them?
Yeah.
And we organize to see how to get the money to send them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you know, they don't sit in a room and decide, oh, we're going to send something to Mozambique. No, you know, the people in Mozambique or a donor goes to Mozambique and sees the need, and then they come to Books for Africa and say, hey, we need some books.
Yep. In fact, it has a very good reputation.
Yes.
For the last 25 years.
Yeah, actually, the reason, one of the other reasons I like Books for, there's something called Charity Navigator. And they rate charities in the U.S. And Books for Africa, in all the hundreds and thousands of charities they rate, consistently comes the top.
Oh, Books for Africa.
Consistently, number
Okay.
one.
Wow.
No holds barred.
Because it just gives
Yeah.
not
Transparency and everything.
conditions.
And they only have like a staff of like 4 or 5 full time.
Wow. Wow.
You know,
Okay.
everything else, you know.
I remember when I was there, I saw a few of the. You were the board director at that time. I guess. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is another.
Yeah, so we do stuff like that. You know, these are important things. You know, you can't just make money and you know, just
Yeah. It has to be transparent. Yeah, they proved it to us.
Exactly.
If they survive and if they're credible for 25 years, I guess it is.
Yeah, so, you know, we were very happy, and I was able to, in fact, that 25th anniversary came, I was the co-chair for that. For myself and my friend Doris. There's a lady called Doris Pagelkoff. Another very accomplished lady. She used to run the United Way, Minnesota. I forget which
branch.
No. The main United Way here. She was director for something for them. She's retired now.
But and the guy founded. Forgive me,
Tom
I forgot
Worth.
his name. Tom Worth. Yeah. I remember him from way back.
Yes, very fine gentleman, man.
Yeah. In fact, in one of our African Global Roots article, we wrote.
Yes.
Maggie wrote an article.
I saw it. Yes.
So I posted it there. Yeah.
Yes, I saw that.
Let me ask you the last question. I know we can go on and on forever, but you promise us that you'll come back next time. Then we'll go in depth. But I want you to talk about the Minnesota Multicultural Media Consortium.
Yes.
What is that?
Oh yeah. That is more of a trade group, and you know, a lot of people might not know it because it's more of a trade group, really. So about maybe I'll say 15, 20 years ago, everybody knows Al McFarlane. People might know Al McFarlane, who runs the African American newspaper called Insight News, one of the oldest papers in town. So a few years back, him and a gentleman called Ni Hu, who runs the Asian American Press. They came together and formed what is called the Minnesota Multicultural Media Consortium. And the goal there was to bring the collective voices, the collective minority, ethnic. We prefer ethnic, not minority, because really, in some communities, we're not the minority.
Very true.
The people called minorities are now the majority. So ethnic. We prefer ethnic. So the ethnic papers, ethnic media rather, came together because they wanted to amalgamate. So, you know, combine these media outlets so that they have a bigger base. Not combine them like to make them one, but to come together. So, for example, like when we need to go after business, like let's say we want to go after business from a major corporation, for example, rather than them deal with you know, all these individual entities. They felt it was better if it's combined, so they just a single source. It can be a single source for the advertiser. To just buy once, and it goes to all these media outlets.
And they divide.
Because what was happening? So for example, like in print, Mshale maybe has a circulation monthly of let's say 15 to 18,000, depending on. Insight has 40, 50,000 each week. Asian American Press, same thing. And then you have the Hmong Today
Times.
paper, as another circulation of another 10,000. So the advertiser, General Mills, they don't want to deal individual with this small, what in their mind is small.
Yes, yes.
But now when we combine the readership, and now we're talking 150,000 combined, when you combine the African American readership, the African immigrant readership from Charlie, and the Insight News and all this, then it was single source. So, and then also in addition to that, there's some joint programming we prefer to do together. Whether it's like a community forum, we might, for example, last year we had a community forum that we organized to do with healthcare, for example. When Obamacare came in, you normally need people who have the wherewithal, which is people like us, to call that community forum to get the word out. Because sometimes you have to go beyond what is in the paper and on radio and actually bring a forum and discuss those issues. So what the MMMC, in short, we call it the consortium is, be able to provide a single source buying for advertisers, and then also engage in these other community initiatives such as the forums and just sensitizing the community on a number of things, because the history of ethnic media is really not all about the dollar. Normally ethnic media goes beyond the dollar. We want to be sure the community knows what is going on. They are empowered. They need to organize themselves to partake in the American dream. And the way they can do that is through information. And we take a variety of initiatives to see how that information can be pushed to them. Yeah, so MMC does that for us.
Does that. It strengthens the community.
Correct.
And it's very true. The purpose of the ethnic community did not start as a money making. It might end up there.
Exactly, that is true. Like Michelle, I just told you. It was just 2-pager. It was just to give people information.
And eventually the founder and the publisher has to be compensated.
And then also, one of the other things I just want to alert people is, of course, print paper, you can pick it up anywhere, obviously, like Tempo Afric, any of the African stores we have in town or at the county libraries. But also online, as you mentioned, mshale.com. That's where actually a lot of people find us these days. Sometimes they forget we have the print paper. But, we prefer to just serve people where they're comfortable. If they want it online, we'll give them. If they prefer print, like many of us, we'll give you in print. And then also we have things like the African Awards that we do. Just to honor the community for the excellent things that they do, So that's coming up in October.
On October?
Yeah, October 10.
10, okay. Yeah. So even that, the information, they can get it on the paper or the online?
Yeah, but for the African Awards, actually, because we wanted it to be a little bit of it's powered by Mshale, but we have it standing alone a little bit.
Okay.
Because we tend to let the community run the show a little. A few parts of the African Awards are run by the community.
Okay.
Of course, through our
sponsorship.
Yeah, but because the nature of the paper is, we have control of that because it's a journalistic endeavor.
Yeah. Okay.
But the awards are a little bit more of a community endeavor, so we see ourselves as partners in that. So that one has its own website, africanawards.org. So if they go to africanawards.org, more information is in there.
In fact, we can display it on the screen after the program is over.
Because what we want people to know is, I'm not sure when this will air, but the nominations. The public is actually who does the nominations. We don't do the nominations. The public goes and does the nominations for the different categories: community leadership, student of the year, African business of the year, African nonprofit of the year, kind of thing. And then a group of judges will narrow down the list to 3 per category. So that's the only place where we kind of run the show. But you still have the names. You don't come from us; they come from the public.
From the public,
And then our judges will narrow it down to 3 per category. This year's chairman is Godson Sowa, who is from Ghana. is the one chairing the panel of judges, three of them.
Three of them,
There's
okay.
one gentleman from South Africa also on the panel and one lady from Somalia, so 3 judges.
Okay, okay.
And then they'll narrow down to 3 per category.
Yeah.
And then people will vote before the summer is over.
Is there a prize for it?
No, you'll get a nice, what do you call it?
Coffee
a
mug?
nice statue. Very nice
okay.
statue that is
This is great,
made in
huh?
Africa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beside the
Yes,
humor, this is a fun because it's a recognition.
Of course,
you know,
of
the
course.
community
Yes.
works recognition.
Yes.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes.
I know you're gonna come back and
Oh, no
we'll talk
problem.
about the
Anytime,
different
yes.
issues, which I was thinking about it, but we'll talk about it next time.
No problem.
This is Tempo Afric programs Beyond the Headline. Until we meet next week with a different guest. Thank you. Bye.
All right. That went well, I think.
Huh?